Madhva, Gaudiya, Rupanuga, and we say even Prabhupadanuga, Sampradaya. Compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. The last published book by the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust, while His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada was still on the planet, for his pleasure, Preaching is the Essence, contains many excerpts of purports from Srila Prabhupada's rendering of this 9th chapter of the 3rd canto. Those who preach the message of full surrender to the personality of Godhead are as confidential to the Lord as is Brahma. My dear Lord, these living entities, they're overcome by freezing cold winter, blasting summer, indefatigable material desires. I'm simply concerned in love for them, how to impress upon them your message. So not only is this the very preaching is the essence, the very essence of preaching work, but it is actually, and especially for us in this Kali Yuga, it's described that Lord Chaitanya made this Kali Yuga very, very blessed or special by appearing within it, that devotional service, Prabhupada says, preaching is the essence, distributing, and not just Krishna consciousness in a sense is a broad definition. Of course, when you say Krishna consciousness, it automatically means the revelation of the topmost form of love of Godhead, or the highest facility of reciprocation with the fully evolved living entity, the Tivrena Bhakti Yogini, the topmost Amala pure devotees of the Lord, unalloyed devotional service, Sri Guru Charana Padma, Kevala Bhakti Sadma, that which is exhibited by the residents of Vrindavan in their love for Krishna. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has said, to serve the residents of Vrindavan who felt profound feelings of separation from Krishna when he left Vrindavan to reside in Mathura and then Dwarka, is our supreme constitutional position. And Lord Chaitanya, he showed this highest form of devotional service in one of the captions in one volume of the original 17 volumes of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Prabhupada allowed, when asked if photographs of holy places associated with Lord Chaitanya could be included along with the original artwork, and he gave his permission and blessings for such. So a photograph of the Jagannath Puri temple from the outside, mainly showing the thousands and thousands of years old dome, the sacred site of Jagannath Puri, where Lord Chaitanya demonstrated and taught the highest principles of devotional service to the Lord. That Brahma engaged himself for the personality of Godhead. Narayan means that he engaged himself in the service of the Lord. This is the highest penance one can perform for any number of years. Earlier in this canto, Prabhupada says in one purport that the measure of the value of one's activity is whether or not the Lord is pleased by whatever the activity, in whatever category. If not, Prabhupada simply states, it's simply a waste of time. Krishna concludes the 8th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita with this memorable statement: a person who accepts the path of devotional service is not bereft of the results derived from studying the Vedas, performing sacrifices, undergoing austerities, giving charity, or pursuing philosophical and fruitive activities. Simply by performing devotional service, he attains all these, and at the end, he reaches the supreme eternal abode. And Prabhupada, in translating the wonderful prayers for Lord Krishna by the demigods for Lord Krishna in the womb of Mother Devaki, the 2nd chapter of the 10th canto, the words kriyasu, by manual labor or work, in this connection are most important. And that's where the demigods are saying those who, how does he say, cause others to hear your glories are very, very pleasing. Essential essence of the statement. By kriyasu, by manual labor or work, in this connection is significant. All our activities in this Krishna consciousness movement are centered around distributing Krishna literature, distributing transcendental knowledge. One can approach any man and induce him to read Krishna literature. At the conclusion, I believe it's chapter 6 of the Antya-lila, Pradyumna Mishra, taught by Ramananda Roy, Lord Chaitanya, he acted in such a way to defeat the pride of the caste Brahmins by, in particular, demonstrating how he elevated Rupa and Sanatana Goswamis to the Rasacharyas of his Sampradaya, and they were practically converted to Mohammedans. They were Mohammedans in a sense, serving the Mohammedan government. They were rejected from strict Brahminical society. Ramananda Roy, he's telling to Pradyumna Mishra, very highly situated Brahmin, I wish to hear the topics that you discussed with Ramananda Roy at Godavari. I wish to hear Radha Krishna Tattva. What was Lord Chaitanya's response? Reply that I don't know of such topics. Whatever I've known, I've heard from Ramananda Roy. If you want to hear such topics, you must go to him. And when he went to go see Ramananda Roy, what was Ramananda Roy doing? Astounding activities. He was personally guiding, even physically, the young, beautiful Devadasi girls, Kanyakumaris, who were meant to exhibit by their bodily expression the symptoms of and transformations of transcendental ecstasy for Lord Jagannath. And Ramananda Roy was doing this. Ramananda Roy was astounded, and he came back and reported to Lord Chaitanya, and Lord Chaitanya said that such acts are the prerogative of Ramananda Roy alone. Who could be not agitated in the presence of a woman? It is very, very difficult. Indeed, if I even hear the name of a woman, I experience changes in my body and mind. But we can understand that his mind has been converted to a spiritual entity. And Prabhupada reveals that actually Ramananda Roy is the incarnation of one of the chief attendants of Srimati Radharani, Vishaka Devi herself. So Ramananda Roy, by so-called caste division and order of life identification in this world, was in the Kayasta community, which is technically, even though he's big governor, he's technically considered to be a Sudra. And indeed, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, at his conversion, came to understand Ramananda Roy's position, and he advised Lord Chaitanya on his tour of South India to meet him. And Lord Chaitanya says in the purport in that section in the meeting that Lord Chaitanya is the combined form of Radha and Krishna, and Ramananda Roy is Vishaka Devi. So similarly, when the two meet, it would be quite a transcendently ecstatic experience for both of them. Whereas the ritualistic Brahmins were simply amazed. How is this sannyasi who was lustrous like millions of suns becoming restless like a madman by embracing this Ramananda Roy? And when they understood this, they restrained their activities and et cetera, et cetera. In the Ramananda Sambad talks between Lord Chaitanya and Ramananda Roy, Madhya Lila chapter 8, such an important chapter that even Prabhupada, in giving the synopsis of the Chaitanya Charitamrita in 1967 in teachings of Lord Chaitanya, chose that as one of the most important chapters to demonstrate the full teachings of Lord Chaitanya. To benedict the world with mercy, again back to the 6th chapter of the Antya-lila, is the purpose of Lord Chaitanya. How this was done after describing Ramananda Roy, Rupa Sanatan, and Haridas Thakur, elevated to the Namacharya, Prabhupada says in one place, the dean of the college, or authority of the chanting of the holy name. Prabhupada says in one place, who is pleased to accept his birth in a Mohammedan family. Not like, oh, but degraded, he was forced to, horrible. He was pleased. Brahma Haridas, Lord Brahma, in his profound feeling of contrition, of stealing the calves and cowherd boys, chapter 13, 10th canto, and the amazing prayers. Brahma's prayers are, we just heard in the 9th chapter, in many places, several places in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Tatenu kampam shishukshimano, one who patiently tolerates all the reactions of his previous misdeeds, all the while calling out for you, for shelter, for your pure devotional service from the core of your heart. For him, the kingdom of God has become his rightful claim, for example, and many other, so many important prayers. 7-year-old Krishna didn't indicate to Lord Brahma whether he was pleased or displeased. He was kind of left hanging. So just as all of the Lord's associates who reappeared, Krishna's associates, in the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, was like a transcendental encore, or in the symphony or the artistic presentation, it's called the coda, or the summary climatic summarization, or the refrain, a short refrain which even brings the original opus to a even higher grand finale. It's Lord Chaitanya's pastimes. He appears as Brahma Haridas. My dear Haridas, what is the news? My dear Lord, for a long time, I think that you have, I can understand it, very soon you will bring to a close your pastimes in this material world. I wish that you do not show me that concluding portion of your pastimes. I wish to give up my life before that time. Transcendental argument in love. My dear Haridas Thakur, whatever happiness I have is because of your association. It is not fitting that you go away and leave me aside. My dear Lord, do not create an illusion. You must simply give me this mercy. I will chant your holy name, Sri Krishna Chaitanya, and just like Bhishma Devi gave up his air of life, embraced by Lord Chaitanya personally performed the funeral ceremony. Lord Chaitanya gave the benediction. Anyone who's seen the passing of Haridas Thakur, anyone who has chanted and danced here, anyone who has offered sand on the body Anyone who has taken this feast here will all receive the mercy of the Lord very soon. There is such power in seeing Haridas Thakur. The Lord knows very well how to demonstrate the personal qualities of his devotees. Just like an artist erects an easel and paints his masterpiece and considers it his personal profit. I'm giving the example of the lives of these great personalities. And what to speak of the subsequent followers of Lord Chaitanya, and especially how, and Prabhupada, for our side, we think that we come from the most fallen position, but Prabhupada said that Lord Chaitanya, you were all associated with this movement previously, and the Lord has directed you to take your birth in the Western countries to assist me. He said that to, in particular, like that to Bhavananda Prabhu, who said, but Srila Prabhupada, how is that possible? We were all engaged in the most heinous, sinful activity. Prabhupada said, that is just circumstantial. When you heard the holy name or my chanting of the holy name, you all came running. To benedict the world with mercy is the purpose of Lord Chaitanya's movement. And how that was done, he mentions Raghunath Das Goswami, and whose appearance day is on the Chaitra Mas Purnima, this Saturday, the 16th. Shyamananda Prabhu, this was shown by these two. He gives their two examples, Srila Prabhupada. And that in one of the purports to the conclusion of this section, this chapter, Pradyumna Mishra, instructed by Ramananda Roy, this present Krishna consciousness movement carries forth the same actions, because the same activities and principles are being followed without fail. And Prabhupada says the members of this Krishna consciousness movement must take very seriously their great responsibility to distribute such love of Godhead via the method of propagating the chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So this is our penance, and this is our austerity. Kriyasu, by manual labor or work in this connection, in regards to in particular, Maharaj Ambarish Prabhu's example, devotional service. He performed deity worship very, very nicely. It's even a painting in the 9th canto of him performing the artik for the deities in his palace temple. And thus he engaged in devotional service. And Prabhupada said, deity worship austerities are many. Similarly, in our Krishna consciousness movement, we have to prepare literature, preach to atheistic men, go door to door. These are all austerities. By such austerities, one becomes purified and can achieve the ultimate goal of life. And Prabhupada, when he would see devotees inventing unnecessary austerities or hardships, he would say, our austerity is preaching, don't invent anything different. So engaging in the service of the Lord, that is the highest penance one can perform for any number of years. There is no retirement for such service, which is eternal and ever encouraging. Prabhupada says in one place, the so-called old age of the devotee is simply to the opposite of the non-devotee, not a discouragement, an encouragement that he's entering into his eternal life. There's a nice example after Svayambhuva Manu successfully matched or paired his daughter Devahuti with Kardama Muni, how he retired and how his life was not for nothing or not spent in vain, even though he was great emperor and engaged in so many different affairs. This is at the end of the 22nd chapter, the marriage of Kardama Muni and Devahuti. Consequently, although his duration of life gradually came to an end, his long life, consisting of a Manvantar era, any number of years, was not spent in vain, since he ever engaged in hearing, contemplating, writing down, and chanting the pastimes of the Lord. As freshly prepared food is very tasteful, but if kept for 3 or 4 hours becomes stale and tasteless, so the existence of material enjoyment can endure as long as life is fresh. But at the fag end of life, everything becomes tasteless and everything appears to be vain and painful. The life of Emperor Swayambhuva Manu, however, was not tasteless. As he grew older, his life remained as fresh as in the beginning because of his continued Krishna consciousness. The life of a man in Krishna consciousness is always fresh. It is said that the sun rises in the morning and sets in the evening, and its business is to reduce the duration of everyone's life. Both by rising and setting of the sun, another day is lost and wasted, but not true for one who is engaging in glorifying the all-good personality of Godhead. One of the first things that Shukadeva Goswami said to Maharaj Parikshit in the second canto. Swayambhuva Manu's life did not become stale after some time, but he engaged himself always in chanting about and meditating upon Lord Vishnu. He was the greatest yogi because he never wasted his time. It's stated that his life was very long, 71 yugas, 71 times 4,327,000 years. For the entire duration of his life, Manu engaged in Krishna consciousness by chanting, hearing, talking about, meditating upon Krishna. Therefore, his life was not wasted, nor did it become stale. Anandam Buddhi Vardhanam, Pradipanam Purnatmitas Vardhanam, Sarvatma Snapanam Param Vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtanan. Ever increasing ocean of transcendental happiness. And the essence of that escalation is pleasing Krishna and seeing and feeling Krishna's pleasure and happiness upon us and are wanting to do more. This is described as an ever increasing escalation of service and benediction. Which is ultimately in the same mood and parallels the devotional service of the pure devotees of Vrindavan, who simply live to please Krishna, and Krishna simply lives to please them. In the beginning of the chapter, Madhavendra Puri's devotional service, chapter 4, the Madhya Lila, Vrindavan is the place where the residents are naturally inclined to love Krishna, and Krishna is naturally inclined to love them. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Vibhavarisesha Ananda Vardhana Prema Niketana Phula Sada Jojakankama. Ananda Vardhana, ever increasing the ecstasy of his devotees. Virinchopi tata chakre divyam varsha satam tapa atmani atmanam vishya yataha bhagavan aja. The greatly learned sage Maitreya said, O Vidura, Brahma thus engaged himself in penances for 100 celestial years as advised by the personality of Godhead, and applied himself in devotional service to the Lord. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Any questions or comments?
Thank you, Prabhu. I wanted to ask, we know we have these two kinds of bhakti, Vaidhi sadhana bhakti and Raganuga sadhana bhakti. Can you explain what is the main difference between them?
The main
difference between them, and do we have to practice this at some point, and when one is eligible to do this?
Well, Narottam Das Thakur's example, which Prabhupada used from Prema Bhakti Chandrika, devotional service is like a mango, unripe, but it will later ripen if conditions are kept properly for it to such ripen. It's the same devotional service. Sadhana leads to siddhi. So when you say main difference, there's not spontaneous attraction. One has to follow rules and regulations, which are meant to control the, especially for the neophyte, unbridled mind and senses by constant practice and detachment. Krishna's answer, how to do it to Arjuna. Again, very simple. Our process is to please Krishna. So when the Lord is pleased, then revelation is automatically there because one's qualified by that very same devotional service. Satsvarup Maharaj, who was you don't say translating, but when you hear the tape and you're typing it out, what's that called? Transcribing teachings of Lord Chaitanya, that in the perfectional stage, one should follow a resident of Vrindavan. So he asked Srila Prabhupada about that and said, you don't have to trouble yourself or worry about that now. When you're qualified, then things will be revealed to you. And even maybe not at that exact time, but later, the question was asked, Prabhupada, are you that resident of Vrindavan that we can follow? And Prabhupada didn't say, like, I'm the only one, but he said yes. He simply said yes. But throughout, from beginning, in the middle, and the end, and forever and ever, the spiritual master is always our spiritual master. It's not that he's our spiritual master when we're a neophyte performing sadhana bhakti, and then later down the road, we graduate. Or that, Radha Krishna worship we're not qualified for in the beginning, so we worship Gaura-Nitai. But then when we become qualified, then we can worship Radha and Krishna, and we put Gaura-Nitai in the closet. Now, actually, when you qualify in worship of Gaura-Nitai to approach the divine couple, then you can actually worship Gaura-Nitai for who they really are. Chaitanya Charitamrita is the postgraduate study to the Srimad Bhagavatam. Lord Chaitanya's pastimes are and his appearance is the extension and amplification, acceleration, if you will, of Krishna's pastimes. If one says, let me dive deep into the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya, his loving network, then one at once becomes an intimate associate of Radha and Krishna in Vrindavan. Preach very strenuously when you were young, and then when you were old, you can retire to Vrindavan. Although if you don't do that, then the mind and senses will disturb you. We don't want to be, Emperor Akbar asked his minister, how long does sex attraction last? Up to the point of death. No, I don't believe it. You know the story. All right, I will demonstrate in due course of time. My dear king, come with me at once. We're going to see a dying man, and bring your young teenage daughter. I want you to look at the face of it. So we don't want to be that. Otherwise, the mind will disturb. Then the devotees ask, well, Prabhupada, how will we know when we're mature? Well, how does it go like that? But Prabhupada said something. He said, as for me, I'm not so mature, so I'm going to continue preaching. In other words, the topmost heroism up to the last breath for a soldier to die on the battlefield is glorious, is it not? Prabhupada's last spoken words in this New York yatra, coming down the elevator at 340 West 55th Street, when you go and you take darshan of that building from the street, you can remember this. Prabhupada was in ill health. He was flying to London in a very bad cough. You can read in Hari Sari's diary how when Prabhupada landed, the devotees were oblivious to Prabhupada's condition. This was the beginning of his final illness. And Prabhupada just kind of championed over the bodily condition and went through everything, the airport arrival and the coming to the Bhaktivedanta Manor and the welcome address and everything. But the devotees here in New York were begging Prabhupada, take rest, go to Gita Nagri farm, take rest. And Prabhupada was listening to all this. And then he, made his decision. He's leaving. He's coming down the elevator, being driven to the airport. And then hearing this, and he puts his cane down and he said, I have taken the benediction from Krishna, like Arjuna, to fight and preach to the very end. And that was it. And then he left the building and got in his car, went to the airport. So if we think about that, that reveals that Prabhupada's activities and the service that he has engaged us in to support his preaching activities is on the highest platform of devotional service. There's no need for anything else. There's no need to graduate to anything more. There's no need to seek any other instruction or platform to, so to speak, get something more wonderful or higher. Is that all right? We can get into more technical answers to that question. Hare Krishna. Anything else? Thank you very much. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Shri Radha Govinda ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanandi Haribol.